Shair says in Urdu, क्यों ज़र की हवस में दर बदर फिरता है, क्यों ज़र की हवस में दर बदर फिरता है, जाना है तुझे कहाँ और तू किधर फिरता है. Why are you chasing materialistic things in this world? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you for paradise, but you have turned away from the road that is leading you to paradise. So our ultimate goal is paradise. My dear respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters, when we look at the stories of the pious people and how they worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, it's shocking, but it's true. And it's very hard to find a person that worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same way today. Hatim Asam rahmatullahi alayhi, he goes to visit a pious person whose name is Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi. The reason why Hatim Asam rahmatullahi alayhi goes to visit Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, because he wants some advice to how to practice Islam and how to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi. He says, I enter the mosque, I see Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he's reading Fajr Salah. I join in with Fajr Salah, and then he says, after Fajr Salah, I sit on a side waiting for Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi so that he frees himself up, and then I can speak to him and take some advice from Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi. He says, Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he finishes his Fajr Salah, and after finishing his Fajr Salah, he engages himself, he indulges in remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, I sit and wait for him, I watch him. He says the time for Zuhr arrives, and Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi is still in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says the Zuhr adhan goes off, we read the Zuhr Salah. He says, I make the intention that after Zuhr Salah I will speak to Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi. He says Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he finishes his Zuhr Salah, and straight away after finishing his Zuhr Salah, he engages himself again in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The person says, Hatim Asam rahmatullahi alayhi, he says, I waited for him till Asr Salah. I waited for him till Asr Salah. He says, we read Asr Salah. After Asr Salah, I sat on a side waiting for him. He says, he indulges, he engages in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again. He says, we read Maghrib Salah. He says, I think to myself that now is the time to speak to Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi. He will leave the masjid now. He says, he indulges and again, he engages himself again in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, we read Isha Salah. Then I think to myself that Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he's going to walk out of the masjid now and he's going to go home. He says he sits after Isha Salah and he remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all night till Fajr. Allahu Akbar. He says it's exactly 24 hours now. Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he hasn't ate, he hasn't slept, and he's remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. And I'm waiting for the chance to speak to Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi. He says, after Fajr Salah, I sit on a side again, waiting for Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi to speak to him, take some advice from him. He says, Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he's remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he slowly starts to doze off. And then Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi, he shakes his body and he sits upright, and he says to himself, he addresses himself and he raises his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he says, Ya Allah, he says, I seek refuge from these eyes, from you that constantly want to sleep. Allahu Akbar. When has he slept, guys? He says, I seek refuge from you, Ya Allah, regarding these eyes that constantly want to sleep. And he says, I seek refuge from you, O Allah, regarding the stomach that never reaches its fill. Guys, he's worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 24 hours in a row. Find me a person like Uwais Qarni rahmatullahi alayhi in today's time and age that worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like that.